Thank you everyone for joining us today and welcome back to BRIC's Pre-Apprenticeship Speaker Series, where we aim to give you an inside look at the various careers that exist across entertainment, media, and tech with help from the industry pros themselves. I'm Sarah, I'm BRIC's Director of Communication and your moderator for this series. And today we're joined by Brian Dickman here, who is the founder and CEO of Cleverlike Studios. And so for today's session, for anyone who might have a really big passion for video games, Brian is going to show you how knowing 3D game engine tools like Unreal Engine can really translate into valuable in-demand career skills beyond just careers in games. So I want to let that sink in. Brian will take you through his presentation, but just a reminder, we always do a Q&A during the last 15 minutes of our session. So make sure to use that Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom screen to submit any questions you have for Brian along the way. And with that, Brian, I'll turn it over to you for your presentation.
Wonderful. Thanks, Sarah. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining. So excited. I'm a little bit nervous, I have to admit. I want to say the right things. I want to give you all the greatest information you've ever heard in your entire life. Hopefully my expectations haven't been set too high. But thank you for joining. Like Sarah said, I'm at this point in my life where I have no hair and I get to play video games for a living. So I'm feeling pretty fortunate, and I feel pretty fortunate for the experiences that I've been able to have in my past. And there's always regrets along the way as you're learning things, but as long as you're learning things, you always have an opportunity to grow. So here's how this is going to go. I have you as my captive audience here. So I'm going to force you into submission here with my totally boring guide to success. So while I have you, and this is a pre-apprenticeship program, I was thinking, okay, so video games, we're gonna get to that. But I was thinking, what are some of the things that I could share with you that would be great takeaways for anything and everything you do in your future? And I just made a terrible assumption that you would think this is completely boring, so that's why I wrote it this way. But hopefully you find it fun and engaging. So, firstly, this education is for you. I know you feel like you're working for your teachers. They're assigning you work. You're doing the work. But all of this is for you because at the end of the day, this doesn't really impact them as much as it will impact you. So your education journey is designed for you. So my question to you is, what are you doing with that investment that people are putting into you? How are you treating that? Right. So I'm thinking of, are you in a position right now where you're taking notes? Do you feel like there's anything I'm going to try to share things that I think are valuable and beneficial for you? Are you going to capture those things? Are you a bystander in this process, or are you involved in this process? I want you to think about that because, again, after this is over, I have to go back to my day and get back to my work. And what you do with the information after this is completely up to you. And those are the opportunities that you're going to create for yourself. So, are you taking notes? Do you have a way of taking notes? Are you engaged? Are you paying attention? Do you have one earbud in and you're listening to a soundtrack constantly? I know there's lots of different accommodations for people, but I think that you being engaged in an exchange is valuable. So think about the fact that what I really want you to do with your headphones is play your anthem, your success anthem when you're grooving and you're working with information and you're growing and you're making things happen. Get that music going and get your anthem going. Get yourself charged up. But try to be focused when people are there for you to engage and provide that information, right? So that's my annoying lecture of the moment. You know, put yourself when you're in these situations, make the best of it. So, a couple of things that kind of like uh, have recurred for me that I feel like are worth sharing for people, and some little bit of storytelling for you here. So, when I was younger, I really wanted to pitch in baseball, and the coach's son was the pitcher. Go figure. And then one day, the coach's son, I had, trust me, I had nothing to do with this. The coach's son got injured and couldn't pitch anymore. And so what happened was all the kids there, since no one was on the mound, all the kids started to practice pitching before practice got started. And so if you were observe this scenario, if there's something you want and there's an opportunity, how could you take advantage of that opportunity? So I was pretty young, and I recognized that this was an opportunity for me to get noticed. Whereas anytime previously I tried to get noticed, just kind of got lost because the decision already had been made. The position was filled. The position was filled like a job, somebody was already in that position, but I thought I was worthy of that position. So one of the things that I did was I watched the coach sitting in the dugout while all these kids were pitching. And I felt like, okay, this is my moment. Like I have to find the right time to do this. I have to get it. I have to get my way in there, and I have to make something happen. So, paying attention to the coach, he's watching. I get my way up there to the mound, and I'm like, this is it. Deliver a pitch, and it was beautiful. It was fast. It was straight. It was the best one that had gone over the plate in a while, and then I felt real satisfied that I had done a good job. And guess what happened? The coach came up to me and asked me if I would consider pitching for the team, and that began my pitching career in baseball until everyone grew faster than me, and then my pitches became, a little too easy to hit, and I moved on to a different career. But it was that moment sticks out to me as a moment to take advantage of the opportunity to prove yourself, and this has happened over and over again. So a thing called Farmcraft was and these both are super important. Super important beginning events. Farmcraft was a government project to teach kids agriculture in Minecraft, and it was a real complex task of teaching bioengineering, teaching about different biomes, having it done at a certain grade level, certain time frame, and have a leaderboard so everyone could have a score, so it could be a global competition. So it's really complex, and I knew this was like an important project for me. This was right around the time where COVID kind of caused more people to want to reach students through games. And the cool thing about this is that we did the project. I worked really hard. I knew it was important, and we launched that version. And couple of things that I didn't know is the person that hired me to do Farmcraft and saw the commitment to the work that I had, the passion for teaching and creating games. That person moved on to a different job, and they moved on to a job at Microsoft to work for Minecraft Education. And when it came time for Minecraft Education to hire people to create really compelling educational experiences, that person had an experience with my process, the passion that we have, the work that we do, the quality that we strive towards. And we got hired to build content for Microsoft. I could have never predicted that happening, but that work, that chance to prove myself, turned out to be a door opener. Uh, Likewise, I was doing a lot of Minecraft clubs back in my day when I was kind of changing jobs. My wife told me, you should do something with Minecraft because all the kids are asking about it. And I looked into it and I'm like, this is really cool. So I started a Minecraft club. And then I started to teach modding in Minecraft with add-ons because that was the new thing. That's when Microsoft was buying Minecraft. And so um, what I did was there was a Mindfair event which traveled the country, and they were like, "We have a learning lab. We want to teach people Minecraft stuff." And I was like, "Oh, that's cool," because I've been like learning so I could teach. I've been teaching Minecraft stuff locally. And so they had like 7 different cities. And so I applied to teach and I checked every city. And so the guy called me back and he's like, "Hey, um, the idea here was like we'll find somebody like people in the local city to help us teach so they don't have to travel and all that stuff." And I was like, "I'm in. I don't care. I'll get myself there. You don't have to pay me. I'm dedicated to this. I'm going to do it. I want to do it. I got to make this happen." And so he's like, "Okay, we'll come to San Francisco." And so I came out to San Francisco and worked with their learning lab program at Mindfair. And you can see this picture on the slide is actually kind of towards the end when I had, not only did I have like a 40 computers all running my game and I had presentations in the lab, I also had a stage show to the entire audience where I had kind of rigged the parents, a game show of the parents versus the kids in Minecraft where I rigged it so parents would win. It was pretty hilarious. But it was really there to help remind parents that they need to pay attention and they have value to offer. But so that experience went great. And we created a lot of great moments in that process. And that person that invited me there was a teacher in New Jersey. And that this was around the time Fortnite started to come out, and we started to talk about Fortnite and Fortnite Creative, and then we would experiment with it, and he would invite it, bring it into his class, and he would get noticed with the work he was doing with his class, and then Epic noticed him, and they asked him if he would create, a coding lesson in Fortnite Creative. And so he reached out to me and said, "Hey, like, do you want to work with me on this project?" Of course, I said yes. We worked on that project. We published it for Epic as contractors. And soon thereafter, he was hired by Epic. He is now their director of secondary education, Steve Isaacs. Um, and he knows, again, he saw me working. He knows the work that we do, the quality of the work that we do, the commitment to the student, and consequently, we're hired by Epic Games. So through these paths, Epic, Microsoft, and Epic Games both hire us to create content for them because they got to see our work before it meant anything. Um, so hopefully that's impactful. And then so another thing, kind of switching gears here, like back in my day, we had flashcards. I don't know if anyone's ever competed in flashcards in a class, but this was basically one person would walk from desk to desk, and whoever got the right answer fastest would, stand up and then continue through the classroom. And it was always like me and this one other guy that would kind of meet each other and face off and work our way through the whole class. But really competing, on trying to identify the problem and find an answer quickly. And I think that process was pretty rewarding for me. I know not everybody's wired like that, and you don't have to be wired like that. But for me, I found that was a motivator, and so the takeaway there is kind of like in your world. Again, this comes back to the not being oblivious to your surroundings. Like, be aware of your surroundings and your situations, and how can you contribute to the current situation. Um, and so I have this picture. Oh, I forgot to change the text on this one, but this one, you see this old projector. This was back in my day. We didn't have PowerPoint. We had clear pieces of paper that you could write on marker, and this projector would project what you're writing onto the screen, kind of like a whiteboard, except you write on the paper and could swap the papers out. This is an overhead projector. And so I'm in college, and the guy from this company, he's recruiting college students for computer science. Big company. He shows up. He's all in his suit. He's a little disheveled. I think he was a little bit late, and he comes to this room. All the students are in there, and he's trying to get this projector going, and it's not working. And of course, what do you do? So, like, what do you do? Like, think about it in your head right now. What are some of the default troubleshooting that you would do if somebody tried to get the projector working? Would you be like, sit there and wait, or would you be thinking like, I wonder if it could be, is it plugged in? I wonder if they have the power turned on, like the obvious things. And of course, that's what he checked. And time's ticking. He's already late. Room full of students. I could see the stress in his eyes. And then I noticed, so I started to look at this thing and I was like, man, what could be wrong with this? And as I looked at it, there's a little door behind the on the top behind the clear screen. And I noticed that door was popped up a little bit. And then I thought about it and I thought that door is access to the light bulb, which is like a very, very hot light bulb. And so I was thinking that some of the familiarity I had with this is I know it's kind of like the light bulb goes off when you open the door. And I was like, I bet you that thing is not latched, and that's why the light is off because of the safety switch, right? So I'm like, kind of theatrically, I got up out of my chair. This was a gamble too, right? This could have just not worked. But I get up out of the chair, walk up to the class, go to the machine, and just like smack it on the door, and the light comes on. And he points to me and says, "You're hired." And I got hired by that company as an internship. They were a Fortune 150 company. I got hired for an internship. And mind you, I had an awful first semester in college. Um, and we talked about that. They saw me on the right track after that. So they saw the learning moment. But I think the impression that I made at that moment, looking for that opportunity, created basically gave me an edge that no one else had. Now, I don't think you can have this type of opportunity, but I think the takeaway here is like, don't go fixing archaic machines it's not about fixing archaic machines. It's about being aware of scenarios and looking for your opportunity to contribute a solution to a situation, right? You are not a passenger, especially as you're moving towards the workforce. You're not a passenger. If you have your driver's license, you might have been through the process of like once you move to the driver's seat, you suddenly didn't know where anything was because you could get to everywhere when you were the passenger because it just seemed to happen automatically because you were not driving. But anyway, that's something to pay attention to. A couple of other cool things is kind of asking for support. Think about just that one little edge. When I was in college, I had made a game, and I needed a little bit of help. There was just one thing that made it so no one else could play it on my account. So I needed some help. So I recruited a friend, told him what my problem was. He helped me. He helped me solve that problem, which was the missing piece. And then I wrote it on the chalkboard in the school. Hey, sign up for my game, and just put it in the lab. And then all of a sudden, everybody started playing this game, and it became really popular, even to the point where the school, year over year, students would be recreating this game in different modes as they were learning things like VR and stuff like that. Um, so that was kind of a cool experience of asking for help and getting something finished as a result. And then in the corporate world back in the day, they used to have like in your cubicle, you would have a phone book and you'd have to look up people's phone numbers. And when the internet or intranet, which is like, connected in a website only for your inside company, I was like, it would be really cool. I did a little coding and I knew I could like search a big file of information. And I'm like, wouldn't it be cool if there was a phone directory that was a big file that could be searched? And I was like, but in a corporation, like there's this guy in the corner somewhere in his office. He had piles of paper everywhere. He looked kind of grumpy and old, and I was scared of him. But he was the keeper of like the file that I needed, and so I went to him and I was like, "Hey, I want the entire employee directory." And of course, red flag. What do you want that for? And I was like, "Can you just like can you make can you do something to put a copy of it into this place here? And I will create like a little online corporate directory search." And so just that conversation made something, an idea possible. And from that became like the new corporate directory. For many years, even after I left the company, people were still using this little tool that I wrote that was made possible because of that one conversation with the grumpy guy that I was scared to talk to. All right. And I won't spend too much time on this one, but learn how to learn. You, at this point, like the work that I had to do, I had to be on the telephone with a friend. That was my Discord. I had to sit on an actual wired telephone and talk for hours and get a crooked neck. But you have a lot of resources at your fingertips. And the favors you need to do for yourself, like I said earlier, the education is for you. And so, how are you learning? Because no matter what job you get, one of the best characteristics that you could bring to that job is the ability to learn something new. Okay, so you don't need to show up to a job with all of the knowledge that they ever need forever, right? That doesn't make any sense. You need to show up with a capability to get started and the ability to learn and adapt and grow and contribute solutions when there are problems and to help people and to ask questions when there are opportunities. These are the things that you need to be able to do. So think about making sure you know how to learn. And it doesn't mean a teacher telling you when your assignment is due. This is you owning your learning. And so I think there's lots of resources. There's the internet, there's AI, there's the library. There's other people you can collaborate with. There's lots of ways to learn, and even your own hands-on activities where you can experiment and build. Imagine something and challenge yourself to create it. And so that becomes inspiring and interesting when you're working for yourself at that point. All right, so a couple of other bonus parts here. Surround yourself with the right people. Some of my best memories are being around the right people. Are you around people that are role models, or do they push you? Are they competitive to you in that they make you want to do better? Can you be that person to them? Are you a role model? Do you find yourself around people that do the things that maybe you don't like or that are your weakness? Or do you find good collaborators that can contribute to what you want? So be aware of who you surround yourself with and what influence they have on your future. Not on the comfort of today, like it's just easy, they're familiar, we listen to the same music or whatever. And you don't have to like exclude certain people for different reasons, but think about expanding your circle to people that align towards kind of like your future, and how can those people bring the most out of you in that process. So it's difficult to do that, but it's one of those things that actually is not all that hard in practice. It's just hard to kind of get yourself to do it. Um, the other thing, a lot of people, I call it intentional serendipity. Serendipity is kind of like, something happening by accident or surprise, like, almost unintentionally. So the question is, how can you intentionally make something unintentional happen? seems kind of weird, but part of it is knowing what you want. Like remember the Minecraft thing where I was like, I'm in it. I don't care. I'll go to San Francisco. I'll pay my own way. I know that that's important to me. So I looked for, I looked for that opportunity and and I did it. And so a lot of people, especially if you think about, boy, look at that person, they're so lucky. Does that translate to I want this for me, or why does this person have what I don't have, right? The why does this person have what I don't have doesn't really say anything about you. It's not saying like I wish I was or I could or I did. Um, think about what you want, know what you want, and you'll find out it's everywhere around you. Those opportunities come by, when you talk about the things that you want, that you enjoy, you'll start to connect with people that have those. And those people, might have changes in their life that open up new doors and new opportunities for you. But if you don't have the conversation with them, if you don't connect with them, so if your interest is art or programming or technology, even like your friends, do your friends have siblings that work somewhere? Do your friends have parents? Do you know what their parents do for a living? What is and like, oh, that's weird. That's weird. We don't talk about that stuff. I have kids, so I understand the struggle. But really, like that information is valuable information because it's a dot that could connect you closer to a next step for you. Because what a lot of adults want to see is they want to see a young, motivated person that's looking for support, looking for help, and they want to support that person. They want to help that person. So if you could be that person and look for something specific, then you will get the help. Introductions, support, experiences, things like that, access to information that you wouldn't otherwise if you were paying attention to what other people had instead of what you wanted. Um, Exceeding expectations. I just think the way I think of this is kind of like, when your teacher assigns you something, first of all, like, are you doing the work for the teacher or are you doing it for yourself? Because if you're doing it for the teacher, then you're done with what they asked you to do. But if it's there to help you learn something, then what are you going to learn? And how are you going to take that learning to a level of mastery, so that you could kind of become better at it. So the question becomes like, how are you going to take your assignments to the next step? Um, if it's worthwhile, if it's relevant to your future and you want to dig deeper into it, or you should dig deeper into it, how are you going to do that? So think about taking an assignment to the next step, even though there's nothing on the rubric that you're not going to get extra credit or anything like that. The extra credit is credit in your bank account for your future. That's where that extra credit comes in. If you already have the A, then the extra credit will show up in your bank account later, right? And then the last piece is learning the recipes for business. I think about this as like, as I reflect on this, I think like, man, who figured out how to bake cookies the first time? And how long did that take? Like, and then like once a cookie recipe existed, anybody could make cookies. And it was easy. But before that, what did we do? We didn't have cookies. And so business is very much like that. And as you're a young person, you realize like you think things happen in some automatic way, but what you don't see is behind the scenes, like what's actually happening. Like a press release, like getting marketing coverage in a magazine or something like that. You think like, oh, like that magazine found this person and wrote an article about them, but that's not the case. The case is like the company is like, hey, I'm over here. Write an article about me, and it's already written. Like here, put your name on it. And this is why it's aligned to your audience and your job. So companies are working really hard to make that happen. So when something gets shown up in print, that's the effort of some people that have worked really hard to make that happen in a lot of cases, right? So, but you don't really, I don't think that the world teaches you that. Um, Unless you go through a specific course that teaches that, and then when you see like, oh, this person's on the 30 people under 30 years old, or the fastest growing whatever, like all of those things are like people that applied for that. They submitted an application to be considered for something like that. So these recognitions and things like that, there are processes in business that you have to go through to make things happen. Even like buying and selling a company. Like when I sold a company, it wasn't like waiting for someone, like I didn't put a price tag on it, put it on the shelf, like I had to like get it ready and actually like tell people like, hey, I want to sell this company. People weren't coming just to buy it. I had to prepare for that process to happen. There's lots of things in business that are processes that you need to get your head around. So that's kind of like that's my lecture on what I think is kind of valuable ways of life to go through as you're kind of moving through your path in life. And now I'm going to start to talk about the games piece, and I want to talk about basically we're leading towards interactive 3D. So, like I said, we do work with Epic Games and we do work with Minecraft as well. So we look at game players from every level, right? So what we focus on is kind of the popular video games because we want that student engagement, and we build the learning content around those video games. That's been our niche. That's what makes us special and unique. And this is the path. I think a lot of you may be taught to feel guilty or misunderstood about your video games, but I'm here to show you that there are some bad habits you can develop, and so you have to respect the process. But these environments actually are very important for your future and can translate to lots of really great competitive opportunities for you in the future. So think about your time playing Minecraft. Think about where that can go. We see Minecraft leading to tools like Twinmotion, which is a 3D visualization tool. Fortnite, if you don't know, Fortnite's an ecosystem. It's not just battle royale. Actually, user generated content exceeds the Epic generated content on the platform. And then there's Unreal Engine. So this QR code will take you to like a careers. So if you have your phone handy, or if you need access to this URL, I can work with Sarah to get that to you. Right. So the work we do in this realm, we create lesson plans and student guides and things like that. So we actually build projects. We build them for education, mostly so that teachers can understand the value of these platforms and translate that value to students. We just did a thing in Palm Beach, Florida, and we work with teachers and we work with students. We could spend 6 hours working with teachers on something that takes students 15 minutes. Right. And we have to understand that because teachers, my saying is like if you pay insurance, then you probably don't have the skills that these students have. So there's lots of opportunities that you have that these adults don't have. Right. And the Epic Games ecosystem is pretty full and rich with lots of technology around Unreal Engine that you can get yourself into, all kind of leaning into the skills you develop as a gamer. I'm going to skip this video. I think you probably have a pretty good idea of interactive 3D. But really, what we're doing is we're kind of seeing, when it comes to the Epic Games pathway, we're seeing Fortnite as your on ramp, and then you're developing these familiarity to Unreal Editor for Fortnite, Unreal Engine. And then the question is like, okay, Unreal Engine as a game engine, where is that going to take me as far as opportunity? And that's what we'll head towards. Um, but if you're a gamer, Fortnite gamer, and you want to translate that knowledge into direct opportunity, if you're an entrepreneur and creator, You want to do it independently or with friends. There's lots of people making a decent amount of money building content for the platform, approaching $1 billion paid out to creators in the Fortnite platform. And this is just, you're creating free content that's playable in the platform. And now they allow you to actually use your V-Bucks to buy in-game content as well. All right. But I'm not here to say you play video games, then you make video games. Like that direct translation, I don't think holds up. I've seen a lot of people over time where they have an interest, but they really have like games are fun and they're rewarding and they're social. There's lots of good aspects to games, but it doesn't mean just because you played it doesn't mean that that's what you have to do for the rest of your life. You can do it for the rest of your life, but you don't have to. But how do you basically take this technology and translate it, right? So something like Unreal Engine and these 3D skills that you develop through gaming are seen in TV and film. Obviously, games, animation is being done in Unreal Engine, product visualization, automotive, not only like automotive design and marketing, but also the interface, the human machine interface on the dashboard is being run by Unreal Engine in millions of vehicles. Architecture and real estate, you can see a project that's being built in all the different phases. You could sell units, office units or living units to people before they're even built. You can have them walk through it and experience it in order to do that. There's like live media broadcasting. There's sporting events or other live events, as well as like training. Like NASA uses it to train in scenarios that could be like really dangerous or really hard to replicate. You can create virtual environments around that, right? There's fashion as well. I think this video is kind of a good one. We'll watch this real quick. I'll talk over it a little bit. I want you to look for different careers in this video.
Stop doing that! Let me see y'all.
Pretty cool. No video games in that one, just all related industries. You saw fashion, you saw automotive, live events, advertising, the Sphere in Las Vegas. Lots of different connections to your many different interests. So as you develop your own specific interests, you can carry a lot of these skills with you, and those skills become a differentiator. Remember what I said, students learn it, can do in 15 minutes what it takes all day for an adult to do. You're coming into the workforce with this knowledge base that you've maybe been led to feel guilty about, like these video gaming, but don't feel guilty about it. That's a superpower, right? So you want to tap into that superpower, and your job is to figure out how it connects to the work at hand, right? So you need to get in there and understand, like, what's the outcome? What are we going for? What are we trying to accomplish? And how could I bring my unique skills and creativity to the table to make that happen. So if you're a storyteller and you want to tell stories, that comes from a place of empathy. That means you really understand the audience. So good storytellers can make money basically by connecting with people at a deep level. And so I think so language arts, storytelling, environment building. You like to tell stories with imagery and pictures. Uh, Character design, designing what characters look like. Asset modeling and design, like creating furniture, futuristic props that don't exist. So, are you recreating things digitally, or are you imagining things and creating those? There's value there. Turning those objects into moving objects through animation and rigging. Cinematic visual effects, like cameras inside of these environments. These cameras inside these environments require a whole new level of skill in these virtual environments. Visual effects, smoke explosions, dancing particles, things like that, the effects that sell the emotion and the mood. Those are specific. All of these are like specific, like career paths that you can pursue based on what you're interested in as you're exploring these things. Coding, interface design, how people interact with the projects, art, artistic representation, even music and sound effects that help complete these stories. Simulation, if you're a real math guru, you can math and physics are built into these scenarios where you could be really valuable in taking that skill and connecting it with this environment to create something of value, right? So these are the types of things that you want to be thinking about. And as you're looking at careers of your interest, you're looking at the skills that you like to do inside of these tools and start to figure out, like, how does my skill and my interest bring value to this industry? And that's where you could start to develop your skills further and develop yourself further and surround yourself with those people that are also like-minded and going to push you to move in that direction. So, something like Star Wars as a franchise, like they're all over the place. They have live theme park events. They use it to plan their filming. They use it for filming, TV, video games, crossover events inside of Fortnite. So they're using these skills already and these tools already to hit multiple different avenues. And so I'll kind of like I'll pause for questions, but wanted to share all of those things and make you, first of all, not feel guilty about playing games. I want you to feel understood, and I want you to also know it's your responsibility to take it to the next level and find these opportunities that leverage those skills. So yeah, thank you for your time, and would love to, I could go on longer, but time to pause and ask some questions. So let me know if I missed anything or if you have any questions.
Thanks so much for that great presentation, Brian. I loved watching that sizzle reel because I didn't realize that there were so many applications of 3D visualization beyond just games, TV, and film. Really cool to see. We have not gotten any questions in the Q&A yet, but folks, definitely feel free to chime in using the Q&A button to ask any questions you might have for Brian here while we have them. But Brian, I have a question for you. Just wondering, are there any helpful projects or like, I know there are lots of like Unreal Engine challenges that folks can take on. Are there any of those types of projects that you'd recommend for students to take on to really like dive into Unreal Engine for the first time to really learn its capabilities?
That is a great question. So we have mm, so there are a number of free lessons available that we built. One of them is like creating your own 3D game, right? So if you want to basically have the game kind of ready for you, but you're contributing to the, personalizing it and learning coding concepts along the way, there is a way to build your own game in Unreal Engine. Everything that's on here you could find through our website, cleverlike.com. We do have like a lesson area that points to a lot of these different objects that I'm talking about because we created them. And if we didn't, I'll point that out.
By the way.
Yeah.
Oh, I think what we're seeing is just a gray screen.
Oh,
Mouse
okay. I thought I could
from
swap
with
that in, but maybe I'll have to I'll have to redo the share. Um, Interesting. Does that help? You see a little town, little village?
learning kit.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so this is the game design learning kit. You get to code this character running through these floating islands and stuff like that. It's really fun. Some students have published it on Steam for sale. You have the right to do that. So if you want to publish your own game, it's kind of a recipe for doing that and getting you into the environment. So never underestimate the value of reverse engineering, which is like take something that's already working and figure out how does that work? Like as a kid, I used to take a lot of things apart to figure out how they worked, and then of course I couldn't put them back together because I didn't know what I was doing. But that reverse engineering is a great way it's another way of learning to take apart things that work. So these kits are great for that. The robotics learning kit is a way to build kind of like if you've ever worked with Lego robotics or Vex or anything like that. It's a way to kind of simulate those inside of an environment like this. And then we have our Rube Goldberg learning kit, and we have a competition. Kids are winning laptop computers. So you can compete to build your very own Rube Goldberg machine in Unreal Engine, which is super fun. But it also kind of gets you into the engine. You get to see how the different things work, like the particle effect system, modeling, materials, sound effects. And you get to see the physics and stuff working, and you get to be creative and have some fun. This came from one of the challenges was to knock down 10 bowling pins. So I'll leave that there. If you have, we don't have to. If you have any questions come up, let me know. But
this is so great.
Yeah. So this is all basically storytelling and environment building. A little bit of coding and all the different aspects of Unreal Engine kind of packed into an exploration that's super fun. It all takes place in a sandbox in this little world here, so it's meant to invite you into doing fun things. So that's the Rube Goldberg competition. You can learn more about that and participate. It goes till May of this year. The other thing I'll point you to if you're taking notes. Unreal Futures is something we didn't create, but is also wonderful. They have careers in advertising where you get to create an Oreo cookie ad. So imagine there's like 80 different flavors of Oreos. Imagine filming commercial for all 80 different flavors of Oreos, right? So they automated that process by retexturing the packages in the same commercial. There's careers in fashion where you get to create your own photo shoot. And also careers in animation. I love the careers in animation. If you have any interest in creating your own animations, this one is super fun. Again, like reverse engineering, you get to have these characters, you get to play with them and see all their animations and how it works and build your own animations on that. So the careers in animation is a great project. It gives you everything you need. It's the project files, the teacher walking you through all the lessons. If you're an educator, it gives you the lesson plan and the way to facilitate this with students, but also the students have the ability to work independently on a lot of these activities. And it's all free for education.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing those resources, Brian.
Sure.
Folks, we'll make sure that links to all of those resources that Brian had shared are included in the description box when this video does go up. The recording goes up on our YouTube page. Brian, I have to ask, we haven't covered it, but the blinking lights behind you.
I know. I want to know who's been curious about the blinking lights. And my question becomes back to the find a problem and find a solution. I'm curious to if anybody's been thinking like making any guesses in their mind as to what that is, especially if you look at kind of like what it's doing and what its pattern is. What does it resemble? Does anybody have any guess on what this thing behind me could be?
I'll let anyone chime in the chat with any guesses. For me, I thought personally it was a clock. Oh, it looks like Deidre also.
Yeah.
Brennan too.
Yeah. It is. It's a binary clock. Good guess. And then your curiosity journey might take you to figure out like what time is it where he is. He's in Denver, right? Like how you can kind of tell where the seconds are. So based on knowing where the seconds are, you might be able to extrapolate. If you know anything about binary numbering, you may be able to derive an answer, or you can go look it up, right? Learn how to learn. You can figure out how it works and gain that knowledge from your own curiosity. So yeah, it used to be I had it in when I would teach kids different coding courses and stuff like that. It was kind of like their exit ticket to tell me what time it was on the clock. Um, just kind of be curious and do some problem solving, and also to show off because it's like solving the Rubik's Cube. Once you do it, it's a pretty cool accomplishment to show other people.
Definitely. All right. Well, we haven't gotten any other questions yet, unless feel free to, folks. We have a few minutes left before the end of our session. But Brian, I did want to thank you in advance for coming on and
Yeah.
doing our pre-apprenticeship speaker series and shedding light on all the amazing careers that knowing tools like Unreal Engine can open up for
Mhm.
students. I learned a lot, so
Oh,
thank you.
good, good. Yeah, I just want people to know that they can continue to pursue their interests and their avenues, that lead them to meaningful careers, and you do have to work towards it. So hopefully, people will continue that journey.
Fabulous. And if anyone is interested in learning more about this kind of topic, I do want to remind you our big event of the year for BRIC is coming up. Our BRIC Summit, specifically our Talent and Education Day, is coming up on March 29th. That's a Sunday. It's an all virtual event filled with panels and learning opportunities where you can learn more about careers across entertainment, gaming, media, and tech. I believe Brian will also have a panel with you that day. So we're looking forward to that. Oh, it looks like we have one question here.
Hey,
What is the most important skill for young people to develop going into their job futures?
yeah, you know, I struggle with this, not in a bad way, but in kind of an exciting way. Is like, um, again, you could go into it, you could pick your area of expertise and you could become really good at it. But the real question is like, how useful are you going to be on a team when the world changes next week? And like the world is changing every week right now. And lots of industries are turning upside down. Lots of new things are opening up for people. So I think being adaptable, being willing to learn new skills and adapt your skills to opportunities, I think is the kind of things a lot of companies will hire for culture fit as opposed to like they don't hire the smartest person with all of the knowledge. And nowadays, when all of the knowledge is available to you in tools like AI, the question is, what do you do with it, and how do you work with a team to make that team successful in the current scenario? I think they look for people that are creative, that are adaptable, that are learning and keeping up and helping. Remember what I said about surrounding yourself with the right people? They're looking for that person. They're looking for role models. And so and because of that, they're filled with a company of role models, most likely. So you're in a great position to learn, but you're also in a great position to contribute. So I think being adaptable and learning is a great way to do that. But you have to get yourself in the door. So you got to put in that hard work and that desire to get noticed. Um, put yourself out there to get noticed first.
Great advice, Brian. And I think fantastic advice to end on a sweet note. Thank you again, Brian, for joining us. Thank you, everyone in the audience, for listening in and taking that first step, like Brian said, to learning and expanding your skill set.
Thanks.
All right. Hope everyone has a great rest of their days. Definitely tune in to our next session on March 10th if you're interested in learning more about virtual production. You can find that on our website, bricfoundation.org. Thanks, everyone.